Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive mystery. Why your perfectly good smartphone suddenly feels like an absolute relic every single autumn. It's something pretty much all of us have experienced, right? And for years, we honestly thought we were just imagining it. Well, we weren't. Let's break down the anatomy of what is literally a billion-dollar cycle.
So why exactly does your phone feel so old in October? You know the feeling. Your phone is humming along perfectly all summer long, and then, bam. As soon as the leaves start to change, it's just incredibly sluggish. You start looking at your device differently. The screen feels a bit less responsive, the battery seems to drain way faster, and you're kind of sitting there wondering, is it finally time to just throw in the towel and buy a new one? But why does this almost always happen right around October?
Section 1. The September smartphone slowing down.
Look at this timeline. Back in August, your phone is totally fast and responsive. You're not even thinking about its performance because, well, it just works. But then September hits and those massive new iOS updates drop, and by October, reality sets in. It suddenly takes 3 agonizing seconds just to open a simple text message. Your camera starts lagging right when you're trying to capture a quick photo, and your go-to apps just spontaneously crash. But here's the thing. What you don't know in that moment of utter frustration is that your phone didn't actually get old over the span of a few weeks. It was intentionally slowed down.
Section 2. The 2017 Apple Confession.
Back in 2017, something happened that honestly should have broken the internet. A bunch of users started noticing something super strange, and actually measurable. Their iPhone 6s and 7 models were getting incredibly sluggish right after the recent software updates. The hardware itself wasn't broken. The processing power was literally being throttled. And finally, faced with a mountain of hard data from users, Apple actually admitted to it. They confessed to intentionally slowing down the performance of those models.
Now, the official story? Apple called it battery management. They basically said, hey, older batteries just can't handle peak performance demands anymore, so the phone has to throttle its own processing power to prevent unexpected shutdowns. Which, okay, sounds pretty reasonable on the surface, right? But the real story, the actual consumer experience, painted a very different picture. The physical phone was completely fine, but the software update made it feel fundamentally broken to the user.
Section 3. The Psychology of Lag.
Let's fast forward a bit to a 2020 lawsuit settlement. During this, a whole bunch of internal documents came to light. And wow, these documents were revealing. They showed that Apple knew exactly, and I mean exactly, what goes through your head when your phone starts to stutter. They completely understood the human psychology behind this technological lag.
So, what's the core psychological trap here? It's something psychologists call misattribution bias. Basically, this bias ensures that when your phone lags, your brain doesn't naturally jump to the conclusion that a hidden software update caused it. Nope. Instead, your brain takes the path of least resistance. It just assumes the phone is getting old. You blame the physical object you're holding in your hand rather than the invisible system operating in the background.
And this brings us to the most crucial point, the absolutely perfect, calculated timing of it all. Just look at this overlap. Every single September, new iOS updates drop, and every single September, shiny new iPhones launch. Because of that misattribution bias we just talked about, your current phone is suddenly made to feel frustratingly slow and outdated at the exact same moment, literally the exact same month, that Apple just so happens to have a brand new, lightning-fast device ready and waiting to sell you.
Section 4. The billion-dollar cycle.
So as a result of this entire debacle, Apple ended up having to pay a $500 million settlement in 2020 to resolve the class action lawsuits. $500 million. Now, to you and me, that sounds like an absolutely massive penalty, right? It sounds like justice. But actually, scratch that. It only sounds massive until you take a step back and look at the larger financial picture created by this entire cycle. Check this out. Because of this performance throttling, consumer behavior shifted dramatically. Before all this, the average iPhone user would upgrade their device maybe every 4 years or more. But now, because the phones feel older so much faster, that upgrade cycle has shrunk down to just 2.5 years. And what does that mean financially for the company? It generates an extra $400 in revenue per user every single year.
Now take that extra $400 and multiply it by the 1 billion active devices out there in the world. When you actually do that math, you quickly realize that a $500 million fine was essentially just a drop in the bucket. It was just a minor cost of doing business compared to the astronomical revenue generated by speeding up everybody's upgrade timeline.
Section 5. The hidden $50 fix. So because of that misattribution bias playing tricks on us,
Millions of people perceive the fix for their suddenly slow device to be a massive $1,000 phone upgrade. But guess what? The actual fix to restore your phone's performance was never buying a whole new phone. It was just a $50 battery replacement. That's it. You swap the battery, the phone immediately stops throttling its performance, and boom, it runs like new again.
Of course, this cheap, easy fix wasn't exactly heavily advertised. Instead, they buried the setting deep inside your phone's interface. To actually find out if your phone is being throttled, you have to follow these specific steps. Open Settings, tap Battery, and then tap Battery Health and Charging. They practically hid this absolutely vital toggle in a submenu where, let's be real, 90% of casual users are simply never going to find it on their own.
And I think this just brilliantly illustrates the absolute truth of the entire situation, perfectly captured by this quote from our sources. They don't sell phones, they sell an upgrade cycle. The physical device you're holding in your hand, that's really just the entry ticket. They built the slowness right into the ecosystem itself because their ultimate goal is just perpetual turnover.
So, I actually want you to take a second and check your battery health right now using those steps we just went over. Go to Settings, then Battery Health. Seriously, go look. Because if that number is under 80%, the system is very likely throttling your phone as we speak. And that misattribution bias, it's probably already taken effect. Your phone feels old, and I bet you're already thinking about buying a new one.
Which really begs a massive question. In this era of seamless, invisible software updates, do we ever actually own the hardware in our pockets? Or are we just renting its peak performance? Well, you have the knowledge now to take control before your next forced upgrade. Don't let a simple psychological bias cost you $1,000. If you found this explainer eye-opening, definitely stick around and join me next week for another deep dive, where we're going to uncover exactly why your MacBook supposedly cannot be repaired. It's a wild story, and you absolutely won't want to miss it. See you then.